They paid in American dollars. You know, a little. This is called day drinking. Where I come from.
And tap beer.
Thank you. Good. A lot of head.
You like that head right there?
Good head.
Dude, he handed that beer, and the first thing I said to my brain was, there's no way he's going to make the head joke.
You gonna make a head joke too?
Yeah.
Michael Halbert, hello! We don't need no stinking rooftop because here's what we got. 3 of the brightest minds in the game today, UFC 276, and 4 words for you, brother. Real talk. Like men.
That's 5 fucking words. You know, Las Vegas may suck, but International Fight Week's pretty great. And we're here to talk about it. The fighting part, anyway. That's Brian Campbell. That's Chuck Mindenhall. I'm Luke Thomas. This is the official Morning Combat UFC 276 pregame preview. What's up, gentlemen? Salud, by the way, boys.
Yeah, this one.
Cheers.
Can we
beer
toast?
finally.
Can we toast to chicks without kids? I used to make a lot of toast with
I always did. Here's to swimming with bow-legged women.
Yep.
That's my favorite.
I'll drink
You know, the only thing
By the way, I
gentlemen.
shit on Las Vegas, but I gotta say one thing nice about Las Vegas. I do like to kid it. It is a little like Dave & Buster's if Dave & Buster's was a city. But
Is Michael Chandler on that commercial?
I don't know. But I will say this about Vegas. The one thing they have great, they not only have weed drive-thrus, they have 24-hour weed drive-thrus.
Wow.
So shouts to Vegas. They're living the dream.
Yeah.
It's improved quite a bit from the days
It has
we really
improved.
hated it.
You know what? It's actually true. When we first went to Vegas, like in the aughts or like the early 2010s, I mean, Vegas is, listen, if you like Vegas, it's always been great. But if you don't like Vegas, it was, hard to go. It's still pretty gross, but it has a lot more charm to it than it did even 10 years ago.
I like the days when you could just go to the MGM Grand and you never had to leave it.
Yeah.
Or the Mandalay Bay. It was like you're just planted there until you went back to the airport.
Chuck, in terms of washedness and current status, what Vegas casinos could you compare Luke and I to at this point, all right?
Horseshoe.
In terms of the
circus.
circus. Man, that's probably about right.
Dude, I one time went to a place.
Oh my God.
No, we're Park MGM at least. We're a little
Maybe
shiny,
the
but we're really a
Luxor, maybe the
shithole
Luxor.
underneath.
No, we're the Monte Carlo when it burned, and then they replaced it with the Park MGM. Yeah, we're fucking.
I'm more of the
lucky.
top 4 floors, the Nomad. You know that's I'm a little classier. You know.
Well, that's where the action's going to be. Well, of course, that's across the street from the
Hey, but Chuck,
T-Mobile
did
Arena.
you not get the memo about these incredible
I did not
MK
get
bomber
the memo
jackets
about
that
that.
make you look 10 pounds
Yeah.
lighter and 20 years younger? You know.
No,
Yeah.
I did not.
I know,
Those are very
BC
nice. Those are very nice.
BC saw mine. He was like, "You almost look cool." I was like, "Almost." That's the key. Almost. Chuck, how you been, bud?
I'm good, man. I kind of have to. I prefer the black. I think that's pretty cool, but the green is right there too.
You
look
like
good.
the jacket like
Sets
you
off
like your
your eyes.
coffee, is what you're
Yeah.
saying. Yeah.
Like your search history on RedTube.
They at some point they are going to want us to talk about fights, but we only have one rule on the show,
Okay.
Chuck. In case you didn't realize, we're looking unfiltered. We're looking no strings attached. We're looking for real talk,
Like what?
like men do.
How many words is that, Brian Campbell?
So as long as you're capable of going there with us,
I mean,
Chuck, you know what I'm saying?
At least I'm on set. You guys
Yeah.
first wanted to do this around a burning trash can, so this.
Yeah, well, we normally do this on the roof of this building, but the crew was like, "Look, we're fucking union. We're lazy."
Now that we're all here and they can't turn the cameras off, that was a pretty lame excuse that they gave, which was basically no excuse.
No. Here's what I'll say. I actually disagree, but for maybe a different reason. Because we asked them to do 3 things in one day with 3 different productions, I didn't mind that they kind of phoned in the last one. But if we were doing 2 of them and they had asked this,
Yeah, we'd be
fighting words
Yeah,
at that
there you
point.
go. Chuck, we are heading into that thing called IFW.
Mm-hmm.
Does that still mean something in the eyes of an MMA fan today?
Can't say it's a bad card. You can say whatever
No,
else
it's
you
not
want
a
about
bad
it. You
card.
cannot say it's a bad card.
But it definitely has diminished over the years. I mean, back in the day when they started this up, I don't know if you went to like the original.
I went to the one, correct me if I'm wrong, sorry to cut you
Yeah,
off just
yeah.
very quickly, the one where it was like the second night was Alvarez versus Dos Anjos.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
2016 UFC 200.
There you go.
And I mean, back in those days, there was like a convention, and I'm guessing that still goes on, but I feel like I don't hear about that as much. And I felt like the entire fight world converged on Vegas for that week. I'm not sure that's the case anymore either, but it always felt like a big deal. I think residually it still feels big because of the international tag, because they do give a very big card, but it doesn't have the same feeling.
Before we transition into this card, what International Fight Week has felt the biggest for you in retrospect? Was it the McGregor versus Mendez one? because of the buzz was so big.
That was a big
for him.
one.
Yeah,
and
that
also
was-
the UFC upped its production
I mean,
that time.
Yeah.
200, which had in the end kind of a broken card from what we
Yes.
thought.
What was the one previous?
With John Jones, with Anderson Silva sliding in, with Brock Lesnar on obvious roids when he stepped on the scale for the first
So
time.
great.
I'm trying to remember the very first one that I went to. Do you recall? Like
Bro,
the very first one that
I only started going on the road in my 40s. I'm a late bloomer in this career life.
I know that they've kind of de-escalated as time was on, but I remember the McGregor one did feel big, but that was just the way that every McGregor fight felt, so it kind of just had an added flavor.
Yeah, but like the thing was like it's like, oh, where is an international fight? Well, of course it's in Las Vegas, but like I think the point you're trying to raise, perhaps if I'm misunderstanding it or not, is like Vegas felt like a destination in the of the year. Was like that
made the trip,
that weekend. You must be. That's where life will be.
Because it's Fan Fest, because Hall of
Right.
Fame, because, and they do a great job, UFC, of filling that city with fighters who, so it's really, it's a convention feel, it's that, but, they've had bad luck. I remember writing a story how they lost the main event or co-main for like 8 straight years for International Fight Week, so it's not always perfect in that regard, but I don't think they're looking at, to open the year, go, what are our 3 biggest fights, and let's put those in the quote unquote majors. I don't think they're looking this as that the biggest fight of the year, the second biggest fight of the year has to be here. They're looking more, let's load up the card, let's make it deep. That's
Which
really
they did, and it's a commendable card. But also, remember they would do the events. Sometimes, initially, it was back-to-back nights, and then it was
God.
back-to-back
You
to
remember
back
that?
nights.
That was the worst when
Which
they did the
I
three.
did cover one of those
Yeah.
on the ground, and it was.
And it ended with
brutal.
BJ Penn's loss on the Sunday, and it was like the most
Yes.
dour note they could possibly.
Yeah, and it was
That
there was Hall of Fame that week as well.
It was so
Which
bad.
will be Hall of Fame this week, or that week, I should say, as well too. All right, well, let's talk about it because obviously, DC and Khabib in the Hall of Fame is nice, but we're here for the fights themselves. Chuck, we'll open with you. Main event. All right, Israel. And I'm going to try and say this right because I've been trying to make a better effort. I was told I'm saying it wrong still.
Okay.
I'm told it's Adesanya.
No, Adesanya.
No, I'm told it's
Adesanya.
Adesanya.
Adesanya. Adesanya.
Izzy is taking on Jared Cannonier.
Yep.
2 questions for you. 1, where is Izzy with the fan base, with the sport? How would you rate where he's at right now? And 2, Cannonier as an opponent, what does this do for him?
Okay, so you tell me what you guys think about this. I've been kind of mentioning this through each fight. There should be a natural escalation to what Izzy is doing, right? He's kind of got this historical value. I think people use the word superstar. I still feel like he's not quite there for whatever reason. I just don't feel, and I don't know how you gauge it exactly besides the hard fact numbers, but I don't hear people talking about like casual people or like people who don't normally pay attention and they just want to kind of know what's going on with Israel Adesanya. I just don't hear it. So I'm not sure. I feel like he feels big within the bubble, but I'm not sure how big he really is outside of it. I think he's a transcendent type of personality. And this is the kind of, I keep saying this, but I'm like, these are the kinds of fights when they put a big spotlight, it's International Fight Week, that should get him over more and like should feel big, but it doesn't feel as big.
I totally disagree.
You do, really?
No, I lean much more on Chuck's side in this debate. I don't know how you could be as far on your side as you tend to be, which I'm interested in digging into it. But do you think, if it's true, if some of what he's saying is true, what is the root cause of it? Is it just the fact that he didn't go for broke against Romero? Or is it the fact that he was talking big things about heavyweight and John Jones and then loses to Blachowicz when we didn't really think he would, and then suddenly it's like, oh, maybe he's not as great as I once thought he was, which isn't necessarily even fair to begin with. Is that the reason? What the heck's the reason?
Well, since I don't agree that that's a thing, I don't know how to answer that question.
It was a fair question, though.
No, it's a fair question. I think.
Wait, I want to hear your take then.
Well, okay, so then to round it out, then we can revisit the question. My answer would be, I guess, a couple things. Like, is he McGregor famous? Definitely not. Definitely not. And probably a step down even from that. But as a guy who's followed him once he got to the UFC and then see where he's gone, first of all, I would say his popularity has, relative to his entry, exploded at this point. And what I can say is, has he fully maximized all the time for popularity? No. In fact, part of the reason you might perceive him as not being as popular as some other people would be, given his success or everything else, with that fucking smirk on your face, which I know means you've got some dad joke.
Oh, no.
Ready in the chamber.
You just have a couple catchphrases, and every time you go right to them with no self-awareness, I get filled up
All right,
with
they're
joy,
verbal tics. What do you want me to do?
Yeah, it's like me when I eat with my eye,
Yeah,
right?
listen, guilty as charged. Okay, which is another verbal tic. But
And for that reason, I'm
what
out.
I'm trying to make is, I do listen. To a large extent, I do think the game and pop culture has put their arm around him. Like obviously he's been seen with a lot of famous people recently. His Instagram has been full of it. You hear a lot more chatter about that kind of thing. And of course, there was those long sustained years, cover of ESPN magazine and everything else. I do think that has absolutely transformed his popularity. I think the thing you're pointing at is, Dude, I don't know that he's trying to get, like, I don't know if you'd have to ask him, but I don't ever feel like he's trying to be like, I need to be as popular as possible.
I agree with you.
He is very much his authentic self, and you see a lot of fans being like, to them, Izzy's kind of weird. Maybe he is, but he is exactly who he wants to be, which is not maximized for total popularity.
Chuck, what's the difference then between who Anderson Silva became at the peak of his popularity and what Izzy doesn't have comparatively where it's not catching on as quick?
People care about Anderson. So when he was fighting, it was like there was a cumulative factor. Every single defense he had put him in another stride. Then there was a bigger faction of people, bigger entourage around him. Remember Usher and Steven Seagal and all these guys? It kind of got like, I remember when he was
relatively late in his reign.
I know it was, but like because he was kind of an earlier guy, he was kind of setting the precedent, like he was of what greatness was. Every time he fought, there was a tension in the building that this might be the moment he loses. And that would hang over every arena he went in. And then if you won, it was like this exaltation the other way. But I just don't feel like Izzy has that.
Maybe because Silva had like Paul Bunyan-like wins. The comeback against Chael Sonnen, the front kick against Belfort. Like he had fucking ridiculous.
That is true.
The Forrest Griffin, bob and weave.
Abu Dhabi.
Just but I mean, just iconic moments. Is that what Izzy is lacking? Is he? He
doesn't have as many of those memorable moments yet. But like, dude, he has done a number on.
I mean, that 5-round war with Gastelum, some gave all. Okay.
Yeah. I thought that was a great. I mean, like you
all
mentioned,
gave some.
Maybe, and I don't know. Like, I honestly don't know if the Blachowicz loss, like going up, hurt him.
Yeah, probably.
I don't know how much
it stock a little bit. Yeah,
I mean, just in the sense of like invincibility, like some people like to play that game. It didn't really affect the way I looked at him.
Okay, but the core of your original question, though, is something we still haven't answered. He's really funny. He's really weird. He connects with, in theory.
Cool. I mean, to say that he's like the coolest guy on roster.
He's almost got like a
cooler than me.
Dude, he's almost got like a Paul brother personality. He's like
what?
In the sense that he's like reaching a different base. He's into the video game culture deep.
Oh,
he's into anime. Like he's into certain things that have connections to younger fan bases. Then why? Because he's so freaking brilliant. Why has it not?
I don't know.
We still don't know.
Also,
why
keep in mind, like here, I think, like, okay, so one thing, like you could ask how popular is he in certain places, right? How popular is he in the UK? He seemed to think he was very popular there. That's probably true. In the United States, obviously, he's pretty popular. He's had a fraught relationship with New Zealand a little bit.
I was going to say, is it because he's not identified with a single country and because he's identified with multiple countries? Is that the problem?
No, I don't think it's the multiple identities. What I think is that, remember, he had a disagreement. There was a system that New Zealand was using during the quarantine to let certain people back in based on, COVID restrictions, and it was a pretty difficult system to navigate. Let's put it that way. And because they didn't, there was probably a series of factors, but one of them was, I think the straw that broke the camel's back, let's say, from my understanding, is that they were looking for an exemption as a team commensurate to what the All Blacks have, which is their very, very popular and very good rugby team, and the government did not grant them that. And I think that what City Kickboxing has felt, and again, I'm not speaking for them, this is just my assessment, I think they felt like that was a big slap in the face, that they have been excellent representatives of their state and their people, and there should be some acknowledgement of that. And so he has vowed not to go back to New Zealand to bring a show. I bring this all up to say, to round it all out, which is that like a lot of guys like Volkanovski, well, you sort of say, well, maybe he's not that popular, but he's got the Aussie people behind him, and he does. I'm not saying that Izzy doesn't have New Zealand behind him, but he has put some distance between himself.
So do you have, I know that you like analytics, you had a site that you started, and a lot of times you could tell by clicks. Like if you were like, Israel Adesanya was a headline, would that generate traffic? That's the kind of thing I'm saying. Like,
I see.
I don't know if he has that. It's weird. It's just like he falls more into the woodwork of that sort of thing than he does the like, I have to read everything about this guy.
We've established there's things that he doesn't have yet, but do you think then it's under promotion? Not that I'm pointing at the UFC necessarily, but I'm saying like when I interview him, it's dynamic, it's interesting. I challenge him, he challenges me. I don't always agree with what he's saying, but yet I know he believes it. I don't feel like the general sports fan, they know of him, but they don't. I
think it's more toward what you said. Like,
dude, I don't think he gives a fuck about
I don't think he's yielding to try to do that.
Exactly.
Like he's just going to let. If he has an it factor, people will meet his it factor on his terms at some point.
That's right.
That's how it's going to work.
That's it.
Yeah,
so like you're making it sound like it's a character deficiency. It's frankly a character trademark. It speaks well of him that he would rather, in my judgment, that he would rather keep some sense of who he is. And if you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. Like, okay.
Yeah.
How much are you looking at the exact dimensions of his areola to know the odds and how it breaks down?
You're the worst
in his
person
actual
on earth.
fight against Jared Cannonier.
You're the worst. You're the worst human being.
Nipplegate was a thing. I'm just, no, seriously.
It was.
Look, Izzy deservedly at the top, right at the top pound for pound list. 2, 3, I think is, if you had him one, could you argue it? Maybe, but I'm an Usman guy. I think a lot of people are right now. How big of a threat do you think this version of Jared Cannonier is right now? Because you look ahead to this fight and does it get excited to you? Are you excited about this fight, or do you feel like I know what it's going to be?
I am excited about it to an extent. I mean, Jared Cannonier, this is kind of his last hurrah. I feel like 38 years old. We know what he can do. He can sock. He can go in there and do these things. I think he's an interesting matchup for Israel Adesanya, but Izzy just seems to that's one thing I will say about him. He handles these situations. He dials in with these guys. He game plans really well. It doesn't seem like he's affected by a bigger spotlight. It just seems like he's always loose. I don't see why it would be different with
I have a very different feeling. This is quite interesting.
Really?
Yeah, I think this is trap fight city.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, this is trap fight
Yes,
city.
you feel your anger, Anakin. I believe in Cannonier more than most because
No. I have a different view.
Okay.
So I guess we'll split.
Yeah.
So you and I will
All
split the difference with him, which
All
is
right,
to say
here
the
we go.
following. Certainly Jared Cannonier is crazy talented, right? And he earned the spot. Let's be very clear about that. On the other hand, I think it would be fair to say, just on paper, you look at this matchup. This is a fight I think most observers would favor Adesanya to win, right? You look at this, it's Izzy's. Izzy should not lose this one.
That's how you do it. You say Izzy, then you don't have to mess with this.
That's right. Izzy should not lose this one.
you just say it and
To be
believe in it.
clear, I would favor him to win for the reasons you talk about.
Yeah.
Where even if he has difficult matchups, he has this capacity to be really focused on what is the task at hand every moment and then to execute. However, dude, Jared Cannonier, did you see him at the UFC event recently? And there were a bunch of people, like it was Meatball Molly and Patty Pimblett or whoever. They were partying next to Cannonier, and he had fucking laser eyes.
I
And I
didn't see
guess I
this.
think Ariel interviewed him about it, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm not there to party. I'm there. I'm there. Like, dude,
he's intense, man.
He is fucking crazy intense. You're right. He has purpose. He has focus himself. He has drive. Jared Cannonier, you can say what you want. He 1,000% believes he's going to beat Adesanya that day. So my point is, Izzy is in a different spot in his career. What does he want to stay at 185?
Yeah.
Does he want to go to
Is there the
205?
same motivation for this?
And does he have the same motivation? Because this is a little bit in terms of ranking. This has been there, done that. Jared is his own man, but that kind of thing. So the point I feel like is, if he is not as focused as he normally is, I guarantee you Cannonier will be.
Because first and foremost, though, 1 second is just to say you're right, but it can't just be knockout threat. I've seen a different Cannonier since the Robert Whittaker loss, where he started way too late to put something together. He had a moment there against Whittaker he couldn't capitalize on. I think since then, it's changed his approach. He realizes now I can't get all the way with that approach and just try to be that smart counterpuncher and land that one big shot that changes the momentum. Since then, I've seen his boxing. People don't talk about this. We still look at him as an all-or-nothing slugger from a distance. You zoom in a little bit closer on the wins since then, his boxing is very good, and he's adding in so much more head movement and nuances to his game. That look, if he's just all or nothing, Adesanya destroys that style. I mean, that's the kind of style made for Adesanya, right? Or maybe it's a boring fight because the threat of that makes Adesanya kind of. But no, dude, this is a different Cannonier, and if that different Cannonier shows up and he's willing to risk getting knocked out to try to win this is a very interesting fight. Because you're okay. The next question is then, how does he do that? What if he starts establishing a heavy early leg kick attack, like heavy, where it gets to a point where Adesanya's got to make legitimate changes? I think there's ways that at the surface you look at the matchup, you look at the odds, you go, okay, I know what's going to happen here. But no, I'm thinking that they're mixed with your trap fight for different reasons. Mixed with
I think it's the punching range.
One thing about Israel Adesanya is he can almost come off like he's overlooking opponents because he's so cocky and arrogant, but he uses that as part of his personality. That's who he is, right? Like you mentioned. I don't really feel like he's a guy who gets complacent, though. Like when we say trap fights, a lot of times I'm like, well, is it like the Amanda Nunes has not really taken Juliana Pena seriously? Issue? I don't know. I don't really get the sense he does that. Like I feel like his identity is tied to his training and like his, like just everything I've ever been. Like he could be a bigger star. He could be out doing those things. But I feel like he is so kind of dialed into his training and like breaking these guys down. I don't feel like he'd go in there and get caught in a way that would be like, well, I was just overlooking this guy a little bit.
Like McGregor against Diaz the first
that
time?
type of thing.
No, I don't anticipate that. But let me counter with this. Let me hear what you have to say. Sure. but the margin of error at this level and in that context
Yeah.
is slim. Any deviation from your normal focus can have huge consequences.
This is the great thing, though. When you're talking about Anderson Silva, the parallel is when he gets these challenges, guys who have knockout power, these guys who have, today, the guys that Anderson Silva were facing back then didn't have nearly the rounded game that these guys are facing, like Israel Adesanya. I find it fascinating on that level because each guy actually does come with a big, hefty amount of doubt, like that they can go in there and do something against Israel Adesanya. And that becomes the part of the fascinating thing, how he handles that. I'm with you guys. I could see it. I could see where I wouldn't be surprised at this point if Cannonier goes in there and establishes something crazy where we're like, wow, I didn't see that coming, and all of a sudden he's a winner. But man,
I mean, what if he's taking him down? What if Cannonier's scoring takedowns?
Dude, Cannonier trains at MMA Lab, which is an excellent team with very smart, capable people, and there is a lot of film on Izzy at this point.
What was the one? You
They're
called this
going to
before.
have a good game plan.
You called this before. We were talking about a fight in a preview show, and
I probably said something brilliant.
No. But you said, what if it's a heavy wrestling thing, and it ended up being the case.
Ngannou, yeah.
That's
dude,
right. That's
I know.
right.
And me and you were like, this fucking dumbass.
Yeah.
What does he know?
So you never know.
But here's my point. Like, the thing about Cannonier is, does it sound like I'm asking too much of him? It's possible. It's possible given his age, given how great Adesanya is, but I don't think age is going to be a factor. He's prime right now. He's ready. This is all or nothing for Cannonier. Will he fight like it's all or nothing? Meaning, to really employ the style that I want him to employ, he's almost got to fight closer to Gastelum did against Adesanya. Do we think a Cannonier is capable of
Yes.
a high-speed attack
Yes.
like that? Because sometimes, like against Whitaker for most of it, he spent way too much time trying to find the perfect shot that was never going to be there. Or that came close, but was never...
Who does back in the day, you could have said Anderson Silva or guys like that. You're like, well, the UFC wants them to win because they want to keep having this name brand that they can plug into big pay-per-views. Do they care on that level for Israel Adesanya?
Dude,
those
y'all are some motherfucking haters. This is unbelievable.
I'm
Of course they do.
Yeah,
Think so? I mean, I
you're
can't
like,
tell.
Chuck,
I
you
feel
haven't
like,
even tried to
I feel
pronounce
like there's
his name right.
there's
Man,
indifference.
I must be out of my mind.
No,
or something.
not specific. I mean, we're talking specifically about Adesanya.
You
but
mean
do they care about
do
general?
they want to put investment in their young, undefeated, in terms of middleweight, champion?
Not
who-
young, though. Not young.
Well, okay, what is he, 33?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Youngish.
that's youngish.
That's
Okay,
prime.
still in that little prime window, right around the edge
And
of it.
Silva, by the way, also was at his best at this age and later, too.
So, okay, at the time when he's most ready to take another step, y'all
I get
are like,
that.
"Yeah,
No. I mean, I get that, but I'm saying
What the fuck?
That used to be devastating. Like, does the UFC care on those levels anymore?
Oh,
Are they indifferent to an extent?
Sure.
If guys
so,
like you
so
know,
in the sense that you're talking about,
Yeah.
which is they took out the volatility of their business
yes,
model.
because they used to have huge rooting interests.
That's right.
And there's champions staying.
They're
champions,
definitely
you
much
know.
more neutral about that now. But for sure, they would much rather have Izzy keep winning. I think
Yes.
they've put a lot into that, and there's been a lot said about it. Okay.
But do you get the feeling that Cannonier could be someone who could be willing to go for it? I mean, to go for it, you have to risk getting countered and knocked out clean, right?
Dude, which is very, very not great against Izzy. That's a
But dude, Cannonier
fast
caught
way
up
to
with
lose.
Whitaker in a fight that Cannonier didn't do much. He did catch up with Whitaker.
He did. He's going to have his moments. I think this is the interesting part to me is like we haven't really seen Izzy hurt.
That is true.
Since the Gastelum fight, right? When was the last time you saw him hurt?
You're right.
No, I think that's right.
Taken down, maybe like a big shot rocked his head back, but like really hurt.
When he tasted that kick in round 1 against Romero, you know that kick I'm talking about? He got kicked in the face, and then that was what kind of put him in a defensive shell. That was a
Dude,
turning
you're
point.
so wrong about Izzy. I can't tell if you're racist. I can't tell if you're racist.
Wow.
I'm teasing. You're not racist, but I'm just saying I can't. You two like fucking.
I don't know. I'm just whatever.
Fuck this guy.
No, I'm kidding. I think he's phenomenal. I mean, obviously, I'm just saying I don't know.
Let me ask you this: if they had put Izzy versus, imagine it hadn't happened yet. If they had put Izzy versus Whitaker 2 as International Fight Week, would you feel a little differently? Because that would be a real like, hey, we're putting this fight. This is a real big test fight. Who's going to be the guy? What's going to happen
They could
here?
have done 3 though right now. This could be that.
You should have
fight.
done 3. Oh, yeah.
I do because I thought Whitaker won the second fight, just like when Max lost the second fight to Volkanovski in a row. I'm like, no, I thought Max won that. I'd be willing to do a third. Hey, we're doing a third the same night, right? Like I would have been willing to do a third there, no question. But I'm not crapping on this as a main event. I'm not even crapping on Izzy as you think I am. I think I have him. Number 3 pound for pound. Where do you rank him in sort of that?
I mean, I'm don't really do the pound for pound.
Okay, but Usman,
I would say he's probably
won.
he's in the top 3.
Okay,
Definitely
and it's
in the
really
top 3.
Volkanovski and him, right? I mean, that's the
him and
conversation.
Usman and Volkanovski.
Usman, Adesanya, and then Jones has drifted just by not fighting.
Inactivity,
Has
sure.
you know,
Is it the last thing I guess on this? But is it Jared Cannonier being the type of B-side that? I mean, like if we're sitting here talking like this, maybe part of that is the equation. Let's say if you put, I don't know who. Let's say that Pereira, like the guy who beat him in kickboxing, suddenly he gets there, and we have a natural rivalry. They've got the B-roll. They can actually plug this in, have a backstory. Would that? You know what I mean? Would that then suddenly be like,
So
now
this
we
is the
have?
setup
I think
to that.
people are lazily saying, hey, look at their careers. Look at the middleweight campaign of Jared Cannonier, look at the middleweight campaign of Izzy. Whose is better? It's an easy call, and he's done much more. And then they just use that as like, well, then Jared must not have much of a chance. Well, I don't know. I tend to think that he is capable of hurting and finishing quite literally anyone in that.
Make him down to the power crystals.
I'll say this much: the big thing I'm going to pay attention to is to what extent is he? I always harp on this. I want to make sure I get it on record. I think that it's not really possible for almost any 185er or any striking 205er to beat Izzy if they don't take away his leg kicks. You have to have some capacity to do it. Blachowicz did the wrestling plus checking. That was the way he was able to do it. But if you don't, he collects those throughout the course of 25 minutes, and people are like, oh, he won on leg kicks. Motherfuckers. He's going to keep doing this until you just accept what it is.
And also, Blahovich's jab was so key in that to draw a line to Izzy in terms of like you can have only so much success without a big receipt coming back, and that's obviously something we would want out of Cannonier to try to discipline Izzy or at least warn him of your power early enough so that he can't get into that first gear and start going downhill against you.
I think Cannonier's got to make it ugly. I think if you try and strike at range with him, which he might for a time, I think that will go poorly for him. But if he can rough him up, get on the inside, push him around, just make it a fight where
he's got power on the inside.
And boy, does he! And he's quick and he's powerful. Again, I would still favor Izzy. I'm going to favor Izzy, but I think that's a tougher fight.
That's what I'm saying. I think we all think of the three of us, and maybe most watching, that Izzy's going to win, and that maybe he should win, and where they're at in both of their careers and their actual, pluses and minuses compared against each other. But I think it's going to be a fight, though. This is going to be a competitive, entertaining, fun match. And I think Cannonier is going to have windows. They could be fleeting, quick moments, but he's going to have moments to potentially capitalize and change the momentum. And I think it's going to be one of those tense, kind of dramatic fights. So,
see, this is what the preview show is supposed to do. It's like get you excited.
Did you just get goosebumps?
A little bit.
Oh, wow. He was feeling my aura, my energy.
Yes,
You know what I'm saying?
those crystals.
See,
Why don't you go beg him, too?
was the color of my energy amber by any chance? All right.
Color your piss.
Yeah.
All right. Last thing on Cannonier. I was just thinking. I think that less than his own leg kicks. I just want to put this on record as well. I think his inside punching. I think that will be if that's a big role. That's a different fight. Okay, takes us to the co-main, which I mean, this is why you two. Listen to this Muppets crew here. The co-main event is the most interesting trilogy, one of the most interesting trilogies in all of UFC history, and it's such an important fight in the featherweight division. Former champion Max Holloway for the third time taking on Volkanovski. Boys, it is quite rare for MMA trilogies to happen when a guy has lost the first two. They have happened with, for example, Wanderlei Silva and Rampage, among others, but they're not often. Chuck, this is a huge fight. When you think about the significance of this fight, how do you articulate it?
Well, there's a bunch of things you look at, like Max Holloway being who he is, and then looking how he's looked on ABC against Calvin Kattar. To me, that was one of the most masterful, dominant performances ever.
Do you think that was the best? Luke and I were debating this. Is that the best version ever of Max, or is it the second Aldo knockout?
Ooh, God, that's.
Or is it the Anthony Pettis fight to get the interim strap?
Man, I'd probably go to that Kattar fight. It was just, there's the one-sided traffic at that, and just be.
He was like,
he looked like he could go another 5 rounds.
He was like Jimi Hendrix out there playing the national anthem. He was just like
his opus.
It was.
But see,
did Jimi Hendrix masturbate when he played that?
So for him to,
it was called Woodstock.
What was that? Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah.
So the reason it's compelling is like you mentioned.
Oh wow! I didn't know there was going to be.
The second fight was close enough where there was a lot of doubt as to who won, so you have that. But I think Max and the way he's looked and his name and the momentum and the motivation, everything that goes into that, he just has, to me, he's got a bigger feel to him going into a trilogy fight with a guy who's beat him twice than any other fight. It's kind of a weird setup, man. It's
your hand was in Chuck's shot. It was scaring me. It was make me
But
nervous.
then Volkanovski too,
cut his mic.
But then Volkanovski being at the highest and at the highest, very highest level, and being, it's compelling. on every level you want to look at it.
Can I ask you a personal question?
Go ahead.
Okay, I'll say timeout. He's got the silly. Just so everyone on
He's
the
got the
broadcast
sillies.
know, Brian Campbell officially has the sillies.
I don't think that's true.
Ring the
not where
alarm.
it's not either.
Ring
Look
the
at that.
alarm.
Chuck, be honest with
All
me.
right, here we go.
How many times have you watched Holloway Volkanovski 2? And part B, how many times do you think it's should be acceptable in the terms of human decency for one man to watch that?
Dad Campbell over here is, if you don't know the reference here, he's doing the 49 times joke.
Okay.
Because apparently that's right.
Because Luke tweeted out that
It turns out, Chuck, people don't know this. If you've been hit in the head with a hammer or eating paint chips, that joke is very
Chuck,
funny.
Remember when you were a
Dude,
kid?
I forgot all about
Do you
that,
remember
but
when
I do remember. I know what he's talking about.
Remember when you were a kid in middle school and some dude be like, no, I got a girlfriend, she just lives in another state, and you'd be like, yeah, right, dude. So this guy talking about that he dunked in high school, first of all, because he
Oh my
was.
God, that's not what
Okay,
Jesus Christ.
now that's a wives' tale. But number two, the one where he said that it took him like 50 beers in his prime to get drunk, that was another wives'
This
tale.
is Purple Monkey dishwasher. He's taking a story I told and then turning it to steroids and then telling you that's what I said. It's not what I said.
Yeah, but number three, I know Luke watches tape. Dominic Cruz would love him.
Dude, I've
Right?
explained this a million
tape.
times. I did not watch it front to back 49.
did he
but
really watch
I
49?
had 49
Yes.
basically full note-taking sessions.
So
which,
no matter how many times you have watched it, Chuck,
Yes, I have not watched it
Don't be the
49
wedge that breaks this marriage. Chuck. You did, all right?
You guys are like a marriage now. Every time I come back, this has gotten a little deeper,
Where do you
a little more
stand-
domestic.
it may or may not be sexless.
Where do you stand on not only on who should, in hindsight, who should have won the second fight, and how close was the first one in your eyes? Because sometimes we falsely say that both were disputed. That's not the case.
Yeah, no, I thought
They are both
Volkanovski-
disputed.
Yeah, they are. I
first
thought
one
Volkanovski.
disputed?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
I have
yeah.
not watched it analytically, and it almost feels, like if you've watched as many times as you said, and all that stuff. Like, obviously, I have not watched it to that degree, but I have seen it twice, the second one, and I can make the case.
47 more, dude. You get on your way,
Make the case,
right?
you can make the case that it's 1-1 for sure, man. At least in my mind.
Okay, let's-
Actually, did you score the first one for?
yeah, I had the first one I was there. I had it for Volkanovski for 3-2.
And you think Max won the second fight?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
all
5
What did you
0.
think, though? So in conclusion, like,
In real time, I don't really remember, but I do believe, and I have just
No,
enormous...
you had Max in real time, and then you went back to Volkanovski after watching.
That's right. Yeah, I think in the end, I guess that's right. I guess in the end, the place I came
Okay.
to was, I think Volkanovski won both. And I know that's not
Yeah.
a popular take. And I also recognize when I say that, that's not me saying there is not a case for Max.
Sure.
There, of course, is a case for Max. If you have, which camera is it? This one? Yes. If you have a Max scorecard, totally reasonable. But I'm just telling you where I arrived in the end. What's kind of interesting, I think folks kind of missed the point on those. It's like, dude, I mean, okay, so Mendez dropped Volkanovski in their fight. But outside of that moment, like, Max has made Volkanovski.
It was 2 moments. He dropped him twice.
What I'm trying to say is the 2 fights. Volkanovski has never struggled more than he did against Max. Max has pushed Volkanovski to what I would call the limits that we've seen from him, except for, I guess, the Ortega stuff.
Ortega was
yeah.
close. Yeah, he was close.
Yeah, but I mean, in terms of like the duration and difficulty, like he's never had to strain in that kind of way over a consistent period of time. But dude, I think Volkanovski, I mean, how winnable do you think this fight is for Max? Because the point I want to make is I think Volkanovski has got a game plan that is the future. But I also believe that Max really actually, if anybody can beat Volkanovski, it's
because
Max
he game
Holloway.
plans, right? Like you've mentioned this too. Like he does stuff in there. Like you can sort of pinpoint moments where you're seeing him do something that.
Oh, yeah, dude, him and his team are very smart.
So that's what makes it fascinating to me. It's just that both guys will come up with different things. They're going to think they're going to be able to split it, but both guys also are adaptable within a fight to kind of change it up within the fight.
Yeah, like
It's
Max
just-
impressed you in the rematch for how he came out and changed the narrative in the first couple rounds, right? Like it was like, oh shit, like he's great. We knew he was great. No, he's really great. You know what I mean? Like that
Yeah.
was a moment.
yeah, but he couldn't sustain it. That was
He
the
couldn't.
problem.
So
Which speaks to Volkanovski.
He came out hot, no doubt about it, dropped him with that knee, which they didn't count as a knockdown, but it was certainly a great shot. But, dude, the problem with Volkanovski is, man, it's like Mayweather. If you don't steal enough rounds
Yes.
early, you are not going
I
to take
know.
him
And
late.
it's not that Alex turned the fight back in his direction. I mean, it was incredible. He outthunk a guy who surprised me by how much he outthunk the thinker. I just outthunk myself with that. But here's what I really wanted to ask you, Chuck. Luke and I were talking about the Yair Rodriguez fight. Like, if this was directly after the Cater fight, we'd be like,
Yeah.
I might favor Max here. You know what I mean? Like, because it's
Right.
that close in your mind.
Yeah.
Does the Yair Rodriguez wild up and down fight, back and forth dramatic, give you more confidence at how well-rounded and how much wisdom this version of Max has, or does it Does it make you a little nervous because this is a more violently focused Volkanovski in terms of striking than we've ever seen?
That's what I look at it more like Volkanovski to me has gotten better, and you're right. Like he comes on within a fight stronger, and if you don't get him down or if you don't hurt him or something earlier, I just feel like it's always going to be his fight. You know, like I also think that like you look at larger patterns within the fight game, it doesn't matter that it's close. When you look at the official nod going to Volk, I think that benefits you psychologically. I think somehow, you know what I mean? Like these guys, it's very difficult for the guy coming into that situation to get over the hump. And I don't know. I wouldn't pick against Volkanovski, even though I love what Max has been doing. I think he's at just a really unique part of his career because having lost those fights, I feel like he's even bigger going into this one than maybe he was then. It's just kind of a crazy situation, but I have a hard time picking against Volkanovski here.
I don't even want to say this, but like, I mean, you look at Max's career, he's 30, and he already has like he already has like the equivalent of like 2 Hall of Fame careers together. I mean, he's had incredible, the win streak, the everything. Could he get old overnight? Like, could this end up, like, if Volkanovski wins, we're kind of thinking it's probably going to be like 3 rounds to 2, kind of like the first 2 fights, right? That's what a lot of us are thinking by default. But because I saw a different Volkanovski against Korean Zombie who was making it a point to basically say, oh, you think I'm a point fighter? I mean, Usman kind of just said the same thing. Oh, you think I'm a wrestler only? No, I'm going to show you that I can strike. What if the miles that Max has catches up to him so quickly, just as Volkanovski might be better than even his harshest critics realize that he actually is? Could that be a perfect storm where Max gets kind of banged up here? I mean, could that be is that a possible ending?
No, I think it's possible. I mean, because we've seen it before. We've seen that exact thing before, where a guy like who's always looked very good, and we've had weird. The bizarre Holloway time. Remember when he was on that interview and we were wondering like if he's okay? Yes. At that point, I was already doubting like, is this it?
But then he came back and beat.
I know. So it's like he's kind of like and destroyed him, like not just beat him, but just like, you know what I mean? Like you see him through this process. But I kind of do know what you're talking about. There's a point in time where you see guys break.
Because remember,
if there was going to be a guy that kind of breaks him that way,
right,
it would be Volkanovski.
So this is why you compare it to where Holloway was fighting Aldo the first time. I was shocked when Holloway walked down and stopped Jose in that first fight. I mean, they both had moments early, but then once he put that together and he finished him, I was like, ooh. Like I know we saw Aldo one punch knocked out by Conor, but that's just different circumstances, different sort of fluke or perfect luck or whatever. He got handled by Max.
Dana White said
was Jose at the same point in his career that Max kind of is now, where it's like you're young, but those miles, like there's a receipt coming, right?
Could happen.
Dude, I mean, let's think about that. Like, even in fights where he's done really well and even, let's say, won, but even ones he's lost too, like the first Poirier fight took a lot of damage. The McGregor fight got his head snapped back a million times. Bermudez, and it goes on and on and on. And then you think about the second Dustin Poirier fight. How about the last Yair Rodriguez fight?
How about that last 10 seconds?
Now, granted, he's had some fights that were easy, like the Oliveira. Even the Volkanovski fights didn't take a ton of damage. I mean, it's probably fine. But I'm just saying, he has had some.
He has.
I mean, Max Holloway has been in the trenches. So you wonder, he's 30 years old, so that's not old, but he started at 20 in the UFC. Dude, 10 years of UFC.
And he's fought just the who's who.
That's a lot. That's a lot of fighting. So I guess we're going to have to see with that. But let me ask.
Then we'll look at the Yair fight a lot differently if that's the case,
true.
right?
Yes. Yes. I was like, that could have been a turning point
last
or something
stand
like that,
or something
right?
for him. You know?
So then it brings me to this, Chuck. Let's think about that. Let's talk about a world where Max Holloway wins or Max Holloway loses. Now, BC and I believe, and I think you probably will agree, if not, tell me. Even if he loses with the existing resume, if Max Holloway retired instantly, I think he's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Right? I think he's a Hall of Famer. He's done.
Yeah, but he's even way higher than just a Hall of Famer.
Right. But I think he meets that bar.
Yeah.
However, what happens in a world where he loses? What does that do to the Max Holloway story?
Man.
After 10 years of UFC, he couldn't reclaim it with 3 tries.
That would be a big part of his story, right? Like there's the one guy, I was trying to point out earlier, like the Renan Morale thing. Renan Morale, remember Dana White was like, he's the best pound for pound. He's like,
he's a monster.
He's a monster. He hasn't lost in 10 years until TJ Dillashaw came in and just blew him out of the water. It's not like that.
It's like, who ruined the Baron, him or USADA? Who did it, you know?
Well, that's a fair.
That's what Uriah Faber told me. Uriah Faber told me
that's
that
a fair concern.
I'm glad you're telling that on the air.
Yeah. He said it on the air.
But it will definitely be a big part of his story. You know, it becomes like, Joe Frazier would have been the greatest heavyweight, of all time. If there was a Muhammad Ali, I think that
You
that
know
just
what? Your
becomes.
uncle would have been your aunt, right? If you,
But it's like that. I think that just becomes a part of the story. I don't know how much it will.
Dude, you're the worst.
You know how it is though. It's like then suddenly you're kind of second to a guy and you can't get over that hump, and it's just that then becomes a permanent factor for him.
Okay, so then what's the converse? Let's say Max gets his title back. We were talking about this. One thing Max has become is that here's one thing that Max has that Volkanovski doesn't yet have. Max is popular. Like, fans love Max Holloway. They're warming to Volkanovski based on his record of success.
Yeah.
But people love Max. Imagine if Max beat Volkanovski, let's say even finished him, gets his title back at age 30 after 10 years in the UFC. Dude, he might explode in popularity.
I agree with that, man. I agree 100%. And it would be, there's a
like
lot
a
of
Chuck Liddell. He'd be like a Chuck Liddell.
He would, and I think
maybe.
that because so many people thought he won, he should have already won one of these games. Like, it would just be vindication, right? I think that there's a real
Rampage knocked out
frustration.
Vanderlei in the third. Remember that? Of course,
Yeah.
that was a very different situation.
Well, actually, not Chuck. It'd be more Randy. It'd be more of a Randy-like story, right?
Well, no, because Randy beat. What you mean with Couture? He beat Couture the first time, and then.
No,
lost
I
the
mean
next year.
Randy is known for making comebacks.
Oh
and
yes,
sort of,
dude.
defying the
I
odds.
remember. I think you were covering the sport then too. When Randy came back against Tim Sylvia,
Yes.
I remember one of the most popular articles that we had on the site was someone had. This is true. Someone had recorded Bruce Buffer's intro that night in Ohio, and this is when the UFC had they'd been going on the road, but like as a popular entity going on the road, like as a newfound post-tough UFC experience. The crowd was electric, and Buffer had maybe the best call of his career that night. It was no, I'm serious. No, dude, it was like an epic moment, truly a Hall of Fame moment. And if Max can capture even a little bit of that, that's lightning in a bottle.
I agree with that, man. I think he will. It's already there. I feel like it's just pent up fandom based. Like you're right. I feel like his star is bigger now than when he went into the series the first time. So if he gets through it, especially if he looks really good doing it.
All right, what
Hold
about
on, let me pitch this to you. I really want to do
I'd
this.
like to catch it.
Please. And you didn't want to talk about Dong on the boys? Okay, I mean, that's all you want to talk about.
I'm not really into that.
BC, let's talk about the converse. Not just Max Holloway loses, but let's talk about it from Volkanovski's point. Let's say Volkanovski not just beats Holloway, but he does it authoritatively this time.
Yep.
No controversy. Whatever that may mean. To what extent does that boost, not his credibility, that would be pretty instant, but to what extent does that credibility boost his popularity?
That was going to be my question to you guys, based under the terms of like, in a lot of ways, it could make him immortal, but yet, how much does a third victory over a guy that we, I guess, technically already beat twice really mean? If he stops him, I think that takes it to another level. But either way, as long as there's no doubt who won, and as long as it's not dead ass boring, he should be hugely elevated from this. Like, even if it doesn't, in theory, mean that much more, I think in people's eyes, it's like, okay, if I didn't already realize that Volkanovski, like Usman, is like starting to creep up. Like, they're starting to like really carve out their place in history, and like you're starting to go, yep, they look like they're gonna belong in that upper room at the end of the day. Like, how high? The upper room, or just the upper room? You know what I'm saying? You know, you've been a part of secret societies most of your life. You know what I mean? People don't understand necessarily his European bank lineage and all that, but yeah, you know, it's just a little Illuminati bit, you know. I can do a hard five whenever you need. All right.
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't understand you.
They got it.
And I don't like you.
If Volkanovski does that, the UFC has to capitalize by making him like a big main event in his country. I mean, like, I feel like that's the one thing.
Here's something to consider. So let's say he beats Max and finishes him. That means one thing for featherweight, right? That's one thing that it means. Second thing it means is, Volkanovski told me this after beating Chan Sung Jung. He wants a 155 title shot. Let me tell you something. You go in there and you finish Max Holloway, your next stop is probably, or there's a decent case
Let me intercept
for a
you there.
155 title
Let me
shot.
intercept you right there, because there is one other thing in this sport that people think value-wise is equal to
Okay,
or greater
don't
than
do
a
a-
title
don't do a Henry
It's not
Cejudo
a bit,
bit.
no. But it's not a bit. He has said he wanted it. Is it even more valuable than competing for a title in second division, him against Conor McGregor on a pay-per-view, in terms of, because it would commercially cement him. It would commercially, like, in your face. I mean, especially if you went in there.
I gotta tell you, I think it's a bad fight for Conor.
Right. So we've
He's got the
debated,
size advantage,
So
but-
we've debated this before. I lean more on the idea that Conor might come to life, back to life in a fight like that.
He might.
But I get what you're saying. He also might get carved up, because we feed our old to our young. In reality, even though the age makes, like, Volkanovski's older than these guys, but he's so much fresher, it seems. So my point is, you want to make him? That's how you make somebody in this
Yeah.
game. If you're looking at the UFC from a mafia terms, like that's how you make a guy. You give him that type of golden ticket. Is that more valuable? You know, it depends on what the UFC sees.
I
in him.
think where Conor's at now probably would make it more valuable for Volkanovski because so many people don't like Conor McGregor, including his home country now. Like, you know, there's a passion the other way now to kind of see him wrecked. So I feel like Volkanovski be
Is he that
uniquely
unpopular there now?
I mean,
I knew the audience was split.
Yeah. It sounds from the sound of it. I mean, obviously you're just catching. I'm catching certain people telling me this, so I don't really know. I'm not out there, but it just sounds like it's a lot worse than it ever has been. You know, like people are
How
just fed
big
up.
would that fight actually be, though? Would it like?
It would.
Like how big though? How big?
I mean, anything that do with that would be big.
I just don't see what it only happens not because we want to satisfy some fantasy condition about like who should fight who in the sport. It only happens if there's a real good reason for Conor to take it, which means like Volkanovski has to do something amazing. Like he has to make himself a target of desirability for this.
Yeah.
But to be fair, if he stops Max Holloway in the trilogy,
That's what I'm saying.
I mean that's asking a lot. No one stops Max Holloway. Not even Dustin Poirier in the rematch, which was ferocious.
He's been submitted, but I know what you mean.
But you get in terms of
TKOs,
because I'm talking about taking the will from him, basically, like
Yeah.
beating the will out of him. Is it in play? Okay, I guess it's a possible ending. I am more of the belief, though. We've seen 10 great rounds between these two with brilliant adjustments. I'd more believe that we're going to see another 5 brilliant rounds with more adjustments. Maybe it'll be more action-oriented than the first two just because the facts that they're getting older mixed with the facts that they know each other so well that sometimes, okay, we keep canceling each other out. Let's just fight. Maybe that's not even a thing. But I still think this could just be a very great technical chess match like the first two were. Do you see any reason that this turns into an actual all-action fight?
Only if Max is somehow able to make it that way. I think that...
You don't think Alex would try to prove a point? Is there any part of Alex...
Sure, but not to a fault. And I don't think Max is going to have a bad fight in any direction. So I think that if dude, Volkanovski doesn't want to fight lackluster. He's fighting Max Holloway. Like, it's hard as shit, dude. Like, you gotta be real careful. Like, what the fuck y'all want him to do? He's fighting Max Holloway. Like, it's hard
Finally,
as shit.
some real talk on this show. You know
That's what I'm saying. Like, imagine you're him. Like, that's a very ridiculous task you have for 25 minutes. You gotta be careful. So I think he wants it, but like, there's ways that like Max. So people have been asking me. The one question I get the most is like, what can Max do differently? Because you kind of felt like the second one, okay, that's the redo. But if the redo doesn't work, fairly or unfairly, if it just didn't get the job done, what would? And so my answer to that would be, you saw a little bit of the wrestling in the Rodriguez fight. Now, obviously, Volkanovski's going to be different, but I just mean mixing up ranges more than just trying, because before he tried to walk him down, couldn't do it. And the second time he tried to intercept him and he couldn't do it. Well, what's left? It's all the tussle in between. That's hard, but Volkanovski's not going to let you do that. So
I could see a situation where Volkanovski fights a little different in terms of maybe engaging in that in a fight, in a brawl a little bit more, only because like he's lived with this. The question he's lived with obviously is like, did you really beat Max? Did you really beat Max? I could see him wanting to prove a little something. I do sense a chip on his shoulder with this stuff, man.
What if we're both right? What if they both come in with chips on? That's when you make legendary all-time great fights.
That is
especially
true.
when guys know each other so well and they're a little bit older.
let me ask you a boxing question. Can you think of a trilogy where the third fight was the most obviously best one?
It's a great question. Typically, the first is the best, and then sometimes the third one, is memorable enough to be in the conversation with the first. The second's usually a letdown. I don't think there's one where the third was just so much better than the other two, where it's like that is the one you look at in the front. I mean,
So maybe we need to have some
even
managed
the Thriller
expectations.
Manila? Like, wasn't that the...
I mean, if the first one was, if the first Ali Frazier fight wasn't the biggest story in sports in like a decade, I mean, it really was one of the biggest moments in sporting history. Like, it's,
Also, if you think about the last one we saw in boxing, which was Wilder Fury. The second one was the most exciting of the two, but that's not true. The third one was the best.
Was a one-way traffic beat.
Okay, but it was thrilling.
The third one
is the
was
best one. The third one's the
dramatic
best.
as shit.
So is that the case? Third one's the best one, most obviously best one?
In that case, yeah. Okay, there you go. You nailed it.
You did it.
Wow, Luke Thomas coming in with the black
Okay,
bomber
but here's the problem. The second fight was radically different than the first.
Yes.
And these two fights look pretty similar.
Right. So maybe the third, something's got to give in the third. As much as I just let off this conversation saying, I can see 5 chess match rounds again, one of the two, or maybe both, are going to want to prove a point, are going to want to say, because look,
so, man.
if you just go to another third fight and it's 3-2 either way, what are we going to learn in the end, right? Like they're both really good at chess. We already know that.
Yeah.
So at some point, to secure the legacy or to end the chapter and to try to win it, because some people believe if Max wins this, he wins the war. He wins the
I feel like
rivalry
it's going to
between
be
them.
5 close rounds again, and Volk's going to get
No,
the nod.
you
and
know
then it's
what?
gonna be-
I was wrong. They're going to go after it, Luke. They're going to go after it because there was something in Volkanovski's coffee that morning against TKZ. I mean, he wanted to kick that motherfucker's ass.
I think what most people misread
does-
is that is how good Volkanovski is. It's just hard to be that good against Max.
Right.
He didn't. People think he did something extra against TKZ. Nope, that's just what he does. It's just that the talent disparity was there with TKZ. It's here with Max.
I love, though, what you love about this fight is all those scenarios we laid out, and the two dominant ones are that Max has another folk hero-like mini comeback within an overall great run, or the other side, which is, oh my God, Max just got stopped by Volkanovski. Like, both are incredibly amazing, and like whatever happens afterwards is gonna, like it's not wrong to call this a historic fight. This third fight.
All right, so it brings us to, there are other great fights all up and down this card. We started with the main event, right, with Izzy, who's got his nemesis here, so to speak, or at least I don't know if Izzy thinks he's a nemesis, but the fans seem to think too, the media kind of presents him that way.
He pays attention, man. He's looking at the big picture.
And he presents himself this way. Alex Pereira is in a fight with Sean Strickland, who, by the way, is on a 4-year winning streak. Pretty remarkable.
What a weird fight, man.
Yeah.
I don't think he's lost since 2018. A pretty great job he's done. His tweets and Instagram posts notwithstanding.
It is hard to move that boulder out of the way.
Dude, I don't even know what to say about it because it's like it's so out there and like crazy that you could do a whole podcast on it. Enough to say you could make your own judgment about the stuff he tweets. But the way he fights is pretty interesting. However, let's start with.
Would you call him the Wes Craven of MMA?
I don't even get that joke. How many shitty movies in the 80s and 90s did your bitch ass see? You know he was there opening night for like Gremlins 7s.
I saw all the Emmanuels. You know that movie franchise?
I don't. No, I don't.
The soft porn thing? I've seen the first
This guy's like, I've got a whole box of Red Shoe Diaries in the attic. You guys don't know shit about Red Shoe Diaries, boy.
Oh, Night
The
Eyes.
show moves fast.
14-year-olds dream back in the 80s and 90s.
We're like, who were your idols growing up? I'm like, Shannon Tweed. You know what I mean? Like, come on, right?
Is that your idol? All right, we're talking about Alex Pereira and Sean Strickland. BC, your level of interest for the fight, candidly, because we talked about why people are kind of dismissing the main event.
Yeah.
The UFC is putting this like #1 contenders fight right on the card.
If you're gonna make that fight, and you get a chance to make it, and this would be the chance if Pereira can get another victory and against a guy this level who's red hot, who seems like he's ready to try to max out and find out how great he can be, you do that. So that raises the stakes so much because without that hook, he's not in that spot.
Yeah.
The question we all need answering, and it's hard to really guess up to this point because he's shown us a lot of bit great and a little bit of okay, is he great or did he just have a couple great finishes after looking kind of average? Like, how good is Alex Pereira? And I ask you, Chuck, I punt on this mostly because you live in the same area as this guy. You guys may hang out. I don't know.
I don't hang out with him, but
Okay. Has he proven enough yet that that outside of the threat of the highlight reel knockout, that there's a game planning threat where he can
No,
take
but
over
I
and
feel
own
like
the guy?
that's kind of what this is. I think that that's the matchup he's getting. If he's able to go in there and do this, finish Strickland, like you said, on a big winning streak, kind of leave it emphatically, that's just beautiful for the UFC because and as long as Izzy takes care of his work, right? But that's just the most beautiful setup because I do believe that is the most exciting contender coming up because of that backstory.
It's a great
and all that
backstory.
stuff. I just really believe that when we're talking about Israel Adesanya, is he as big as, all that stuff we were talking about, I feel like that's the guy that they could plug in and use that story to just blow it up, to blow up his star and everything else. So that would be the ideal scenario. Chaos always reigns in MMA, so it's like, I don't know what'll really happen, but man, it's soon. This is very soon. This could go horribly wrong for Alex Pereira because he's going against a guy like Sean Strickland who just takes the life out of people in there.
Perfect
you know what
pivoting
I mean?
question. Luke, is Sean Strickland like a Chris Weidman in the making here? Is he is he, I know their game is different, but it took me a while to wake up and go, oh yeah, Chris Weidman really has a chance to win this championship. And because he was always so steady, but maybe not unspectacular. Maybe not spectacular on a consistent basis. And Strickland's been unspectacular outside of the things he said, but he's pretty damn consistent. He goes out there and he grinds. Am I overlooking a future title contender or champion?
The
here?
vulnerability to a Valis Pereira.
Where's the ceiling,
I feel like
Luke?
he's vulnerable to that. Sort of
the thing that's been interesting about Strickland's development is he's really well-rounded. He has phenomenal takedown defense, like genuinely awesome takedown defense, and he can strike too. But he doesn't. The criticism is online, such as you want to give it any life, is that there's just not a lot of. It's not offensively dynamic. It doesn't really create a whole lot of threats. It lands and it counts and it matters, and it's very defensively sound. But it's kind of not reserved, but it's a little bit of the back foot, so to speak. But it's busy with the leg kicks and whatnot too. It's highly effective, and that there is, I think, some validity to the results speak to that. I think a little bit, but dude, to your point, like you have a lot of different ways that main event and then that feature fight could go. The two middleweight contests, where all of their plans could get totally blown up in a lot of different directions. Like I think the UFC would obviously rather have Pereira as a title contender, which is why they fast-tracked him here. If Strickland wins, dude, his win streak is impressive.
Is this a #1 contender fight?
Gotta be close.
Pretty close. Pretty goddamn close, dude. And if he does the impossible himself against Pereira, everyone's like, oh, he can't finish. Well, what if he does, right? It's MMA. Shit happens like this all the time. Well, dude, you're having a very different conversation at that point.
Has Pereira's explosiveness fully transferred to MMA in your eyes?
No. He's a little more vulnerable. The cage is a big game changer. Takedown defense is a big game changer. It makes the clinch a whole lot different for him.
Yeah.
And the stuff at range, guys use a little. They're standing a little bit further apart. There's a little bit of different defenses and whatnot that they employ, obviously with the lack of the smaller gloves or the use of the smaller gloves. But it's still, he is quite obviously very gifted and a super dangerous threat. Yeah.
You mentioned Izzy like 205, like going to 205 if there's not there. But if Valis Pereira wins and he's there and Izzy wins, I mean that's
just.
Slam dunk to do
You're
it,
just
right?
printing money at that point, right?
I think so.
And so let me ask you, getting back to the original conversation, so if we are very much speculating, but if Pereira and Izzy were fighting, and Izzy got something like that, do you believe that's the kind, I guess what question I'm getting back to is that the kind of transformative win that you believe is missing?
I think that's the
Something
setup.
like that?
I think because
It's
so much
enough.
of
It's gonna
this,
be
so much
enough.
of this plays out in prospect and hype, right? And I feel like that would be the event where you care about the guy challenging enough, just because I think he's got that kind of shine to him, especially if he goes in there and does something spectacular, finishes Strickland. I really believe he would then have that 100%. On the same card, if he calls him out and all that stuff, I mean, I just feel like that would be a big moment for Izzy, a bigger moment than these other guys who are, they should, like you're mentioning, there's no reason to say that Cannonier is not a threat. Like, there's no reason to think that he's not really the guy or something like that. But they're not big names. And Pereira, some reason, just has, I think it's just the backstory, right? Like, in
he knocked
training with
Izzy out.
Yeah, he knocked him out and have that tape, everything. Like, I just feel like that would be the guy.
But I disagree. I think it has to be next because he's not young, Pereira. I think he's like 34, 35.
No, yeah, he's up there a
And
little bit.
you still can never fully trust somebody who's coming from a different dominant skill set late and trying to make the adjustment. Like, even he can win this fight. I think there's a scenario in which he can win this fight, but yet didn't fully answer our questions. Do you know what I'm saying? So you don't know who can solve this guy, and it could happen in any fight. So if you can get him in there against Izzy and make this backstory matter, that's the time you do it. Yeah. You don't mess around. You don't mess around, and that's why they make the big.
The Strickland fight is an interesting fight for the UFC to book, though, because on the one hand, clearly, Strickland, by the way, deserves a top-tier opponent, and Pereira is the one being fast-tracked here. Let's be clear about that. But it's interesting because Strickland's style, to your point, for an opponent's offense can be quite deflating, right? He can deflate their own offense by the way in which he is so defensively good and can create this neutrality in a lot of different scenarios that would otherwise be threatening. Dude, it's like not only could Pereira lose, he could be made to look like
I mean, I feel like
totally
that's the
lower
most
his stock.
That's the most likely scenario, actually. I think. I think that's the one I can envision easiest is that he just gets taken out of his game, becomes a very lackluster showing, and he just loses 3 rounds.
The thing is, I just feel like Pereira's going to force a fight out of him.
I hope so.
I think that's.
I mean, that's the hope, entertainment-wise, for sure. But that's the best way we're going to get our questions answered. Seriously, if we can get. I don't want to just see like Pereira's weaknesses get exposed and he loses. I want to see him go out swinging.
Yeah.
You want to see him.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, Miesha Tate taking on Lauren Murphy.
Dude, this is a sleeper, right?
Dude, BC loves this fight.
You like this?
Because
I don't hate it. I like it.
But to be fair, the same reasoning. Look, Pereira's a small window with age and volatility. You got to make that fight. For Miesha Tate to make her against Shevchenko for the title, there's a small window here. She wins this against Lauren Murphy, who just fought for the title and is still considered, very much the upper end. Dude, Tate's right in a title shot, and I don't care if we're all gonna not only will we pick against her, we may pick against her bad because Shevchenko's just that ridiculous. That's at least a fight, right?
Yeah.
That's a marketable fight. There's something there.
That's true.
How do we get there though? This is going to be an interesting fight. I don't know if the weight. Cutting down the weight against this level opponent is going to be a factor. Will we see more wrestling heavy Tate or striking heavy? What do you care about this fight on the level to even talk about it and break it down? Because
sure.
you look like a motherfucker.
I'm excited to see.
No, I
what you're
just
that
tuned you
excited
out.
about.
Sorry, you were talking. I was daydreaming.
Do you look at Tate as a threat to the 125-pound title, or only as a marketable B-side?
A marketable B-side.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
You think her best days are behind her?
I think so, but I just don't think that she's the game itself. Like, she was one of those pioneers of the early ilk who was very good. I still think she's added stuff, but I think that some of the fighters now are just better. Like, I just think that they, you know what I mean? Like,
the women's MMA is leveled up.
It's evolved to that
up.
extent. So yeah, it's leveled up. So I'm not sure she's.
Dude, we don't talk about it we don't ever take a moment to stop and say it. And this has been true for some time. I'm not declaring some new truth, but it's worth saying out loud. The wrestling in women's MMA
Oh God.
is so much better than when I started covering it. It's night, and it's true in the men's game too, but it really deserves to be credited. The modernization of the women's MMA game is happening rapidly. Long overdue, but it's great.
I hope Tate it can make the weight and be a factor here, but that's asking a lot at this point in her
Also,
career.
she had a weird coaching split too.
She has a much
she did.
bigger frame muscularly, which sometimes can be hard to cut. I mean, I don't know how easy or hard she anticipates this to be, but obviously name-wise, she gets a win here. I mean, Murphy's name still matters. Is it a style matchup-wise? Do you think this is a winnable fight here for Misha?
For Misha, yeah, I think she could win this fight. I just don't know if she can go on to win a title
and
at this point.
Right, but let's think about the long-term
Can we
plans here.
stop pretending that Valentina isn't an alien, in an all-time royalty freaking great, might end up retiring as the GOAT, whether anyone actually cares? Dude, Valentina, we used to just be no one has a chance against Valentina. Now we're no, she's an alien, she's a superhero. She's...
Yeah, well, this is it though, right? Because you guys talk about Izzy missing something from the popularity factor. Okay, I somewhat know what you mean, but I somewhat also disagree. However, it's very true for Shevchenko. She is not.
Yeah, 100%.
She is not. She is as good as she is, and there is zero dispute about it. You cannot credibly claim she's one of the UFC's bigger popular attractions. That's not true. So there's a gap there.
She's gaining more respect though through
Yes, it's
the
coming.
respect level is so high
100%.
But you're right.
But it's a slow burn.
Yeah.
Popularized. It's a slow burn. Misha Tate could potentially act as a much faster catalyst.
As a Molotov cocktail, right?
Okay, I mean, what are we doing? I mean,
Sillies.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus, bro.
I got Watergate jokes too, if you're interested. All right. Yeah.
Tell me your Atari jokes, pussy.
All right.
All right. Also on the card, there is Sean O'Malley in the opener of the main card against. By the way, saying he was never going to take tough fights. I realize that the contract situation is a little bit different now, but because of pay issues, dude, Pedro Munoz is a super tough fight.
He's a man's man.
He's a super tough fight. What do you think? You like that fight for Sean or not?
I do like the fight for Sean, but I 100% see it as his toughest fight to date. And he fought Chito Vera, who we now have an evolved idea about Chito Vera. You know what I mean? How that happens sometimes where you're well, he's going to beat Chito Vera. He's a huge favorite in that fight. Now Chito's gone on this thing. But I do think that Pedro, it's the guys who get the shot like that too, who are very good, and they know that they've been overlooked in their career. For whatever reason, they have some big victories, but they're going against this new toy that the UFC has. He's going to want to go out there and put a beating on him, you know what I mean? I feel like that motivation is going to be huge.
In terms of popularity, Munoz is in bigger fights. He's had big fights, big name opponents, but in terms of popularity factor, this might be his biggest to date.
So this is the key question. If he goes out there, and this could be the toughest fight, it could be a trap fight, it could be anything once we see it. But let's say O'Malley goes out there, does O'Malley things, wears Munoz down, and then just stops him. It's just a beat down. And sells it with the does the full Sean O'Malley package.
He would do all of that if he.
Does he start getting the McGregor treatment in terms of the fast tracking and the brand building? And you're how soon to get a title shot?
No, he's not the McGregor thing. No, he's not. He's too alternative, right? He's tie-dye.
Okay, but I'm not an apples for apples comparison. But would you put the machine around him? Is really what I'm saying.
I see.
Would you start grooming him to, they groomed, to be fair, McGregor hit them and was the real deal. They groomed him
they
to
pushed
be,
him.
They would have more reason to do that now, especially because I do think it's a pay-per-view, people are paying attention, International Fight Week, all that stuff. I think that the spotlight would be big on him, but they've already kind of tried it once. They were selling, I remember they sent out tie-dye shirts with O'Malley. I don't know if you guys got one. Like they were just sending them out to everybody.
Trust me, the UFC doesn't send me.
They were sending all
All I got
the
was
shit out. They were sending the shit out.
Hooper Eminem joke.
Oh
which
yeah,
is
yeah,
pretty
yeah.
cool.
It was around that same time.
Hey, shout out to Chase Hooper. I like
Yeah,
that shit.
Chase Hooper.
Very nice kid. Yes.
Yeah, he's awesome. But I mean, they've kind of tried to throw it behind before, and then you get the Chito Vera thing or whatever. I do believe that they will do that, though. I don't think they'll fast track him, but they'll find a good fight for him to kind of do
why wouldn't you?
de-escalation.
What are you waiting for now?
The longstanding criticism, in which he somewhat has justified by virtue of saying, listen, yes, they might not be the biggest opponents, but like my contract being what it is, I'm going to fight who I'm going to fight. Okay, well now he's fighting like a no bullshit guy.
Yeah.
Like Pedro Munoz is not a bullshit guy. Like that is a
100%.
real fighter. Dangerous guillotines.
Dude has like a good resume of beating legends in the game.
By the way, fights bravely.
Yeah.
Right.
He'll probably be jacked in like into his mid-60s. Like he's just one of those dudes.
Battle tested. Like Pedro Munoz is a very difficult
Like
fight.
sired multiple families. Like just a man's man, right? You know?
Sired.
yeah.
Does he have a harem as well? Jeez. So the thing I wanted to say is, if for Munoz the gain is quite obvious, but I have to say for Sean O'Malley, I think the reason I love this fight is I am always you have to be reflexively a little bit skeptical of young fighters who make an instant splash with the fan base, which isn't to say that you shouldn't trust the reason why they're popular, but my caution is always, don't make the popularity early tantamount to skill. They're not directly tied.
Yeah.
You see it with Paddy Pimblett, who is very, very good.
100%.
But I'm being clear, he is very talented. He could go very far. I'm saying slow your roll. Let's see him properly develop. I've had the exact same view about Sean O'Malley. Dude, okay, well the jury's in a little bit. Sean O'Malley's fucking good. Like he's really, really talented. His timing, his movement.
But then what's the contract situation?
So, no, I'm not worried about that. But my one criticism is the one that I do think is, how relevant, I don't know, but the jury's still out, I'll say. This part is. It's a tough division. You have to be durable in it. I do wonder if there might be some durability issues.
100%.
Saying the jury's out. Not saying I know, saying
You're
the
right.
jury's out.
Those concerns are absolutely legitimate, and just mixed with the overall concern of has he faced enough competition, elite competition, to let you know exactly who he is, and that's not true yet. We don't know exactly who he is. But do you think the UFC, depending on where his contract is at, I don't know how many fights he has left, but there's going to come a standoff at some point, right? A negotiation. There's going to become some moment. Do you think they overpay for his potential because he just might end up being the real deal?
I don't think you have to worry about UFC overpaying.
So no, or do you think even they draw a line and say, if it comes down to him looking at the other suitors and getting legitimate offers from the rival companies, if it comes down to that,
I don't think they're
would they
heading
let
that
him go? That's really what I'm asking you.
I mean, they can, right, Chuck? They can dispense with anybody, but they want to work together, right?
They want to work with him. I mean, I can't imagine that they would. That is one of their guys.
Here's what I'm saying.
They like him,
He can gain back a lot of leverage with a stoppage win, right? He can gain back that.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it would be behooved of everyone for him to get a stoppage.
Dude, he's gonna land on Pedro. Like, he is. Dude, I'm telling you. Like, even who was it this week, Chuck? Aljamain Sterling.
Yeah.
As we record this anyway, I'd give that away. Stupid me. But had like reluctant praise for him. It was like, dude, I got to admit, he's good. Yeah, he is good. He is very.
He is good when you're watching him. Like you said, his striking from outside and the way he can pick these guys apart is almost sublime because it's slowing down for him. It's like slow motion. You can see him landing his shots exactly how he wants to, and he just has that dynamic personality. But I agree with you, man. I'm like, the durability is the biggest one. Like, if he got hurt in there again, nobody would be surprised. There would be like a very familiar groan, wouldn't it? Like, you'd be like, oh, God, here we go again. I feel like that's his biggest hurdle. It's not even just the escalation of talent or where he's going to end up. I think he just has to show that he can hang in there and fight his style and come out of it unscathed, besides the fight, but like getting injuries because of that, doing an interview off his back with Joe.
No, we don't.
I don't think we have enough data to know for sure.
No,
right?
we don't know for sure, but it's at least worth asking. Because, like, think about it. You're like, oh, well, how big a factor is it? Dude, Chito Vera is the most durable human I think I've ever seen in my life. It matters. It keeps him in fights. He is, yes, super skilled. He is reborn under Jason Perillo, and his last win was tremendous. So, Jesus, he's been winning for a while at this point. But he also has the ability to tolerate extraordinary amounts of pocket pressure in ways that a lot of other fighters don't. So, conversely, not everyone's going to be suited for that. That's all I'm saying.
Speaking of pocket pressure, I'm looking into this Macy Barber-Jessica I fight. It could be a crossroads fight at 125. I mean, are we going to exit this, Chuck, going, Here we go, evil. Here we go. I mean, is this just thank you for your service on the way out? Let's feed the old to the young. What do we got going here? Is this what's going to look
Man,
like?
you got to look at the upside of Macy Barber, but I don't know at this point. I feel like Jessica is on borrowed time, like, and like she's just kind of. I'm not trying, I just don't.
It's not an easy fight. Macy Barber,
easy
like,
fight.
She had the losses there, and I think a lot of people wrote her off as like, oh.
And she was supposed to beat Roxanne, right? Like, so
Yeah.
you see fights like that, so you just never know. Like,
But dude,
Roxanne.
she's rebounded. Like,
Oh, yeah, 100%.
She's looked, I thought Maverick beat her, but it was close.
Yeah, sometimes you have to have a fight like that Roxanne one to kind of really fully focus in on a fight.
Yeah,
she was
yeah.
so young, so I think this
we've
is her
taken
fight.
some L's as a young man to become
yeah.
who we are today. You know what I'm saying? That's why my feet tell the story of my life. That's why my cauliflower toes, we don't disrespect
toes.
them. Do you go up to Vanderlei Silva and be like, nice ears, bro? No, you don't do that.
It's just fungus. That's all it is.
No,
just fungus.
it's bruising. It's storytelling. It's art.
Chuck, you want to plug anything? What you got going on?
Not really, but I don't know. I show up on this show like for the
Chuck,
pay-per-views
remember when people
mostly.
used to read writing? You're the best in the game, and you probably still are.
I should write more. I do have a site, themyth.com, MITH,
Yes.
which I have not been writing in enough. I've got that, and then the MMA, the Ringer MMA show
With High
your
Road
boy-
Helwani.
With High Road,
Yes.
yes,
And Pizzi,
Helwani.
right?
And Pizzi Carroll, yeah. So that's
How is Pizzi?
he's great.
Very
He
Irish.
thinks you don't like him, but
I like Pizzi. Why would I not like
I don't
Pizzi?
know. I don't know. You tell him.
Yeah, why don't
I try to tell him he's
Yeah,
insecure.
why don't you come clean?
Hey, Pizzi, put the camera on me. Put the camera on me. Okay, any day production.
Yeah, no, they're not working,
There he
dude.
is.
They're not working.
I love you, bro.
This will mean a lot. You think
See you
that
soon,
this will
boy.
mean a lot to him? It's going to mean a lot.
Soon, boy.
Hey, Pizzi, let's bang.
No,
to
see,
it.
I think he's
I
a
like
bigger.
Pizzi a lot.
He's on that show with me, but I think this is his favorite show. I don't know. I just get that feeling. He wants to be on the show very.
Well,
I'm just telling you guys.
If Pizzi is ever, I don't think they're going to send us to Ireland,
No,
candidly.
but he'll be out here again.
But if you come out here, open invitation.
All right.
Open invitation. There you go. See?
There you go.
See, people, I don't understand people. I like people. I've never said a bad word
A lot
about
of people think you don't like him, Luke. I don't know what to do.
I don't like you or him. That's both of you are
I
slime.
actually thought you liked him.
Yeah, you're okay. Him, God, get him the fuck out. All right, UFC 276. It's going to be a wild one. That's Brian Campbell. That's Chuck Mindenhall. Luke Thomas here. This has been Morning Combat's UFC 276 pre-fight, pre-game, whatever the fuck we call it. Y'all
Like
have a good day.
menu.